Apart from the fender stands on this car, I needed to do some other repairs on the body, like this rocker cup and the bottom of the B-post, for example, and the corner on the deck, which was rotten. On the other side, the deck again, but a little bit further. Also the top of the B-post, which when I started wire wheeling to remove the rust, turned into this. There was more bondo than metal in it. First I made the cup for the rocker. I know these cups cost a couple of bucks, but you know, I'm cheap and I will never buy something that I can make myself. It costs a couple of bucks, but it takes a couple of minutes to do, so it saves you a couple of bucks, right? And couple of bucks, couple of 100 times, that's a couple of $1,000 saved, right? I said couple so many times that it doesn't make sense anymore to me. Couple. Is that a word at all? As you can see, you just need a scrap piece of sheet metal, a template made out of plywood, and a couple of minutes. And if your template was done right, it fits like a glove and it saves you a couple of bucks. Did I say couple? As I was dealing with the cup, my new assistant shrinker prepared this patch for me, for this top of the B-post. So I traced the patch and started cutting it, but it wasn't that easy. I had to use my dentist grinder, but it was too fragile for there. So I just went to town with the heavier equipment. When I reached metal solid enough to weld to, I cleaned the rust as much as possible and I welded the patch there. It was important that the bolt part of it is flat, nice and flat, because this is where the fender stand fits, and on the side it could overlap the old metal. That wasn't a problem. I ground the weld as much as possible to make it look nice and test fitted the fender. It fit nicely, so I could paint and move on to the next patch. This corner of the deck looked solid on the top, but it only looked like it was solid because when I started wire wheeling, as usual, big holes opened up, and again, on some other cars, I could find rusty holes covered with bondo. So again, I had to cut out the rust and reach solid metal that I can weld to, and it was ready for patching. As usual, I patched first the bottom flange. I ground it flush because this is where the fender fits, and painted. I made a small patch for the top, which I welded and then ground. And with that, the left side of the car was ready. Just need some filler to be smoothened out and prepped and painted. So I moved on to the right side of the car, and there I had exactly the same story. I removed the fender, and the stand was in the exact same shape. But before I deal with the fender, I wanted to inspect the deck, because this is where all the rust happens usually. This one was surprisingly solid in the rear part, but there was this area in the front of the deck, and especially in the corner and the top of the B-post, where there was a lot of undercoat which was collecting mud and water around it, obviously, because when I peeled it there was a big rusty hole behind it. Start with the repairs on this side. I wanted to fit the stand and then the fender, made them together and then get them out of the way. So this is what I started with. I'm not gonna show you too many details because I already showed you the other side, but it was basically the same way. The very important part is that the two parts need to be assembled on the car, and before they get welded together, and before the flange gets bent around the stand, you have to make sure that everything fits perfectly, like the door meets all the curves on the fender meets the rocker, the top of the B-post and everything. So once I made sure all this was fitting well, I tucked the stand to the fender in a couple of places, and then I bent the flange. Then I painted the areas where I welded and where there was bare metal, and with that the fender was done. I could move to the B-post. And the B-post was in critical condition. I started cleaning it up with wire brush, and this is what happened. I know I should get used to that, but I still don't understand how some shops can do that. How can they just cover rusty holes with Bondo? That doesn't last. Like, they have to know that the owner is gonna find out soon, and it's gonna I don't know. I don't want to comment anymore. Even on top there was a hole. I checked inside too. At least inside it was fine. So here this area was a real challenge for me. So I had to work in very small sections. I couldn't make one big patch and replace everything. Probably somebody who is more experienced can do that, but I couldn't, so I just started cutting out and replacing small parts of the rusted area. As usual, I started with the bottom flange, and then I moved on to the top. Here, this gap I could almost fill up with weld, but it was just a little bit bigger than what I could weld, so I had to shove a little strip of sheet metal underneath, and then I filled the gap with weld. So what I actually did was I just replaced their Bondo with metal. For the side and for the top I actually had to cut out pieces and do them the proper way. Again, my dentist grinder wasn't good enough, so I had to use heavier equipment for here. I made a patch that was repairing only the side. As I said, I worked in very small sections because this was really complicated shape for my skills. And for the top there was no other option but to use the teeny tiny grinder, but it worked fine this time. I think that's the smallest patch I've ever done. But it worked out fine, and then I could grind the whole area and it looked great. And for the sides of the deck there was absolutely no problem anymore because I already had experience with that from this car and from the 73. Actually a lot of experience I earned just in a couple of weeks with decks on TR6s. There was this area also to be patched, and that was the last piece for the right side. Final grinding, and with that the right side was done too. Just needs to be smoothened out with Bondo, but again this car is gonna go to a different shop for the prepping and painting, and this is where they're gonna do the body filler and they're gonna mount the fenders. So that's it, thanks for watching, and I'm gonna see you in my next video. Completely out of topic, but have you ever wondered why some objects like this dolly, for example, have this oval hole right in the middle of them? I always wonder, and I can't figure it out. And I'm really curious because I keep finding it all over the place, like this step ladder, for example. I don't know. For me, it doesn't make any sense, but if you know, please let me know. Okay? Thank you.